Okemo Valley. This is Carol Lighthall with Okemo Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today's program all about snowmobiling. We're going to start off today and do introductions of our guests, starting over here. If you would just tell us who you are, your business, and how you're connected to snowmobiling.
Hi, Carol. Thank you. My name is Steve Brown. I have a couple of connections, starting from being 5 years old and being introduced to the sport by my parents. So I was a Arctic Cat, kitty cat rider at 5 years old, and then was involved with the clubs ever since, and riding the vast trails. We have a business in Londonderry that sells snowmobiles and repairs them. And I also have a touring business at Stratton where we take folks snowmobile and ATV touring year round.
Fabulous. Over here, Mike.
Hi, Carol. I am Mike Stewart. I am president of the Shrewsbury Sno-Birds Club. Little history of our club: we were formed in March of 1971, so I do believe we're one of the oldest snowmobile clubs in the state. You can access our trail system north and south through Route 7, and from the east, Route 4. I would say 90 to 95% of our trail system is on state and federal land. So we actually, when weather permits, we have 36 miles of white carpet for your pleasure.
Wow, fabulous. And Cindy, I know you drove quite a ways to be here today. Thank you.
Sure.
And tell us about who you are.
Well, thank you for inviting me. My name is Cindy Locke. I'm the executive director of the Vermont Association of Snow Travelers, which is vast. And we cover the entire state. So driving an hour and a half to visit with you is a short distance.
Yes.
For me. But thank you for inviting all of us here today.
Sure. Fabulous. So I think we'll start with just learning more about VAST. Mm-hmm. If you would tell us whatever you care to share.
Sure. Well, VAST is one of the oldest associations in the state of Vermont. It's one of the largest, if not the largest. Has about 22,000 members.
Wow.
We started in 1968. We worked with the state of Vermont to pass legislation back in the early 70s to really qualify our sport and rein in some of the activities that were happening, which was there was really not a set trail system in the state. So through some legislation, we were able to set up a network of trails, which have grown. And we currently have 4,700 miles of trails in the state of Vermont, and 127 clubs, which he just mentioned his own club, so that's one of the clubs. And yeah, it's just it's a great group of people and a great sport. Snowmobiling in the state of Vermont brings in about $550 million a year in economic impact. So we're second in the winter to downhill skiing. And so that gives us a lot to be proud of. And we have a lot of other things that we're proud of too. But VAST itself, we're one of the only snowmobile organizations in the United States that's run by a nonprofit association. Most are run by state government. So when you look at New York or New Hampshire or Maine, those are run primarily out of a Fish and Wildlife or a Forest Parks and Recreation office. But our VAST office, we have 6 staff and we work full-time year-round. Very busy. We don't get summers off, which is what a lot of people think when they're not in our industry. When you think about snowmobiling, you're thinking that we're really busy in the winter and not in the summer. And actually, it's the reverse for us. We're very busy in the summertime and less busy, but still busy in the wintertime.
Do you get a chance to go riding?
Yes, I ride every weekend. I ride about 2,500 miles a year. I go to different club events around the state, and I like to ride on the different trail systems. So last year, I rode 10 different counties, so we have 14 in the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
And that was really great. I'm fortunate that some people would call this less fortunate, but I'm divorced with no children, and my family do not live in Vermont. I've lived in Vermont since 1978, so almost a Vermonter, and was married to a 10th generation Vermonter. But in any case, my weekends are free, and so I love to snowmobile, and I do every weekend. And I was not a snowmobiler before I started this job 6 years ago, but I have fallen in love with it. I was a downhill skier, and everybody in this region, if you're not a snowmobiler, you're definitely a skier. They can relate to the love of that sport too.
That's fabulous. Now, you talked about VAST being a kind of a standalone organization. unlike that way in other states. What's the advantage of being a standalone organization?
Well, we operate almost like a quasi-state agency, but we don't get state funding as far as helping to pay our staff payroll. We do get funding from the gas tax and from money to help with our law enforcement, because we have to hire all the law enforcement to patrol our trails. So the main benefit is that we are a membership organization, and our membership gets to vote on how the organization is run. And so that's really important to have that direction. So we have a really good board of directors. Each director is voted in by their county, so we have 14 directors and 4 officers. And we have very, very strict policies and procedures on how we operate. And those have developed over the past 50 years. You know, usually if you do something wrong, then you build a policy, or you do something right. So they've sort of grown, they've come back down, they've grown, and we've really found a good set of policies. My binder of policies is about 3 inches thick. And so we're not state government, but we work hand in hand with the agencies and have a really good relationship with the agencies as well as the folks in the State House and from the governor down. Yeah,
great. So it sounds like you're in a really positive middle ground for how you're organized.
We're very, very traditional. This is a traditional organization, and that brings challenges, but mostly a lot of fun.
Yes.
You know, like I said, I was not a snowmobiler when I started. I always knew that VAST had something to do with snowmobiling. I always knew that VAST represented snowmobiling. And most people in the state of Vermont know that. They don't know what VAST stands for, what the acronym stands for, you know, Vermont Association of Snow Travelers, but everybody knows VAST and snowmobiling hand in hand. So it's a great organization to work for. And these guys that are on the boots on the ground is what we do this for. Like, our staff is just completely dedicated to the thousands of hours that our volunteers put into the organization.
Mike said that you have a ton of your trails on federal or state land. Is that typical across the state?
That's a great question. No, it's not. Actually, most of the lands in Vermont are privately owned. So we have about 80% of our trail system is on private lands. So it's through the graciousness of the landowners that allow us on those properties. And then about 20% are state and federal lands. And it's through their graciousness, too, that they allow us. But in the state of Vermont, landowners do not get any benefit from opening up their trails to outdoor recreation. And outdoor recreation, whether it's mountain biking, snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, whatever it is, what they do get is they get an indemnification, which means that they can't be held liable unless they do something with malicious intent to hurt someone.
Yes.
But other than that, they're indemnified just like state lands are.
You have to talk to the landowners yourself?
Yes.
Your club?
Yeah, we do. We have to go get landowner permission slips every year. And with the state and federal properties, we meet a couple times a year and work with close contact with those folks to make sure that we're satisfying their needs and they're helping us with ours.
It's cool that the federal government and the state government lets people put snowmobiles on theirs.
Well, we're very lucky.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we are. And also, I get calls sometimes from people that maybe are buying property or have an inherited property in the state of Vermont, and they're not snowmobilers, but they've traditionally had a vast trail and they want to know more about it. They're not, they're kind of on the fence about having a snowmobile trail on their property. But by the time I get through my conversation with them, because what I say to them is, do you cross-country ski? Do you walk your dog? Do you snowshoe? Wouldn't you love to have a 10-foot wide groomed trail still on your property that you can go out? And we will sign those trails to show that they're skiers on the trail. And so people automatically will know when they enter that system that, they might need to just slow down a little bit or, take a little bit more care because around the corner, the landowner could be out cross-country skiing.
Fabulous. Excellent.
And I will say, our neighboring communities and snowmobile clubs, Shrewsbury, Mont Holly, Londonderry, we do share our trails a lot with the Catamount North cross-country ski trail, and they really do appreciate our groomed trails. Yep, they do.
And so let's talk a little bit about a local club. First of all, I'm very curious about where the name of your club came from. Can you talk about the name of your club, your goals, the things you work on, Mike?
Well, our club was founded back in March in 1971 by some local people, longtime Shrewsbury residents, and they're the ones that named the club, and it's fitting. Our goals is to promote snowmobile opportunities in our town and on our trail system, and do the best job we can to make sure that those trails are safe and as perfect as we can get them.
Fabulous.
Just to have a great experience.
And so are you also, you're a membership organization as well, is that right?
We are.
And how many members do you have?
We have about 200 members.
Fabulous. And so the name of the club, isn't it Concher? How do you say that?
It's Shrewsbury Sno-Birds.
Snowbirds. So I'm thinking
and there's no W on the snow. It's S-N-O-B-R. And you can visit our website, shrewsburysnowbirds.org, to get all our trail conditions and our projects and our meeting notifications. If anybody's interested, you can do it from down country if you want to come up and see how our trails are.
And so does someone have to live in your area to be a member of?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, fabulous. Just want to be on your trails, is that right?
Just want to be part of our team.
Fabulous. And so Steve, your business is sales, service, and rentals. Let's talk about your business and kind of what it looks like.
Sure. So we've been an Arctic Cat dealer at our dealership for 19 years. And prior to that, we had some other brands as well. Our company started when I was in high school, so a little over 30 years. We fix snowmobiles and we sell parts and oil and clothing. And it all kind of goes hand in hand. A little more recently, we started renting snowmobiles as tours at the local resort near us. And we have a website also. It's strattonadventures.com. And you can book tours online. You can call us and do it over the phone. So we're connected on many levels. As I mentioned, I've also been a member of the club forever and been an officer of the club in our local area. So there's a lot of connection to the sport for me and my family.
Fabulous. Let's see what and so what are the requirements? Both the rates to ride, maybe that's a rental question. What are the requirements to ride, and how do you keep people safe? And anyone can answer.
You want to start, Cindy?
Sure. Well, there are rentals, which he can tell you about his pricing, and then there's also a season pass, and there's different ways to buy a season pass. And so there's early bird, just like if you bought a season pass at a ski area. If you buy early, you get a less expensive rate than you do if you buy later on in the season. And then there's also a price difference between if it's a snowmobile that's registered in the state of Vermont or not registered in the state of Vermont. So it starts at about $100 a year for a season pass, which when you look at a ski area season pass, it's quite a lot less money. And then we require that you also join the county club and an individual club. So that's a law in the state of Vermont, where other states don't necessarily have that requirement. They just would like people to join the association or the local club. And then as far as safety goes, I would like to talk about safety, but I think we should continue on with pricing because I can tell you a lot about safety.
What's the local club? Your local club charge?
My local club charge is $12.
I think ours is in Londonderry is $15. I think that's about average, isn't it?
It is about average. They range anywhere from $5 to $30.
Right, and the thing is, the county dues are only like $3 for Rutland, which is so inexpensive. I mean.
Yes, and what happens with the county? So, how many clubs are in Rutland County?
Oh God, 7, I think.
Okay, and so each of those will then pay their $3 for each individual that joins their local club. Also has to pay the $3 to the county. And what the counties often do when they get that money is they'll put that back into grants to the local clubs to help them buy equipment or signs, or they'll help them put on, often they do a county landowner appreciation or a club appreciation dinner for the landowners. And so sometimes that's used for that. I know like in Chittenden County, they go out and buy all the signposts. That's the other thing to tell you about our trail system is that it disappears in the summertime. It is only out there in the wintertime. So these guys spend an incredible amount of time, weeks upon weeks, going out, taking down the signs in the spring and then maintaining the trails through the summer and doing any work, and then reposting all the signs, you know, almost 5,000 miles of trail in the fall.
Mm-hmm. And we have our bridges to take care of in the summer to make sure that they're safe. One thing I want to mention too, one of the requirements for VAST or for a snowmobile pass is you've got to have insurance as well.
Yes, in the state of Vermont, you have to have liability insurance on your snowmobile, and if you're born after July 1st of 1983, you also have to take a safety course. And that's a very important tool. And those are online and also in person and taught by law enforcement trained trainers. And then there's also a component with renting a snowmobile you want to talk about, because it's pretty intensive what you have to, not intensive, but there is some training that goes involved before you send people out on snowmobiles.
Yeah, right. The snowmobile industry and the insurance industry are pretty specific about making sure that we don't put anybody out on our snowmobiles unsafe. So we do verbal training, we do physical training, as well as we have a video and presentation. So our customers take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes before they even sit on the seat of the snowmobile. And then the tours go from there. And our tours start at $45 per person and go from there. And we customize tours sometimes, and we have a bunch of different ways that people can enjoy riding with us.
How long are your tours?
The most popular tour is what we call an hour and a half or 90-minute tour, and that includes the safety stuff and getting the helmets. Mm-hmm. But occasionally we do longer ones, and we've offered shorter ones in the past as well.
Fabulous. And so where do your customers come from? Maybe back to you, Steve.
Yeah, I think my business mimics, I bet, what VAST sees. We have about 50% folks that live in Vermont and about 50% that come from other places. Some people are on vacation and some people who own homes here. But about half of our customers are locals and about half of our customers are from out of town.
And how about demographic? Man, woman, age, family?
It's really a family sport. So the most common thing we see is mom, a dad, and two kids.
Yes.
It's just fairly common. And grandparents are involved, and it's a wide variety of ages and gender.
I ran into a group last year. I was out in the Coolidge State Forest and ran into a group that were on a tour. And they just have so much fun out on these tours. I've seen them in Stowe too, and in Smuggler's Notch. And it's a great way to get the family out, especially when they're coming up to go skiing, you know, a different type of sport, a different type of enjoyment for the day.
Yeah, I learned that I didn't know until we started doing this a few years ago that a lot of ski families come, and a percentage, like a real percentage, 20, 30, 40% of the people in the family don't actually ski, mm-hmm. but they're there because the rest of the folks, and so they like having this as an option, as a way to enjoy our winter, you know, like the rest of their family is doing.
Yeah. We do. We see that a lot at the chamber. So not everybody skis, as you said. And generally, our white stuff is a little bit light right now, but we'll get there. But generally, folks are looking for lots of other activities they can participate in. So very exciting. And so we were just going to, I think, Mike, I was going to turn it over to you and just say who participates in your club.
Out of our 200 members, we have probably 8 or 10 go-to people, and that's one of our biggest challenges, having the younger people come in and actually help us with the trail work, the maintenance work. That seems to be all us guys that are participate are getting older, and we need some younger help.
Yeah.
But there's our core is probably a dozen people that really are very active and come to our meetings.
And so is there a social aspect to membership as well?
I would say yes. Yeah, there is. Sure, we get together and ride together as well.
There's a social aspect to snowmobiling overall.
Yes.
I mean, when you're going on a ride, you pick out where you want to eat lunch and what the loop is, or eat dinner if you're going night riding. And so it can be anywhere from a 40-mile to a 150-mile loop that you would do. and often it's based on where you can warm up, at least get a cup of hot chocolate or a cup of coffee, have a meal, and then ride back. And you often will stop at junctions where trails, come to a junction, to get off and sit and talk and things like that. It's very, very social. So these clubs, not only is it just riding, but they have social events too, and fundraisers and things like that for the community.
Poker runs.
Poker runs and Calcuttas and
Nice. So before the program started, Cindy let us know that you were formerly with the Chamber of Commerce. So my question is kind of twofold for you, Cindy, and for everybody else is, how does an organization like Okemo Valley Chamber of Commerce embrace snowmobiling?
Well, it's such a, it is a statewide sport, and there are chambers around the state that have embraced their local snowmobile clubs. And VAST itself, we're a member of probably a dozen chambers around the state, including your chamber. That mostly came about when I started working at VAST. I have 25 years of experience with chambers in Vermont. I've worked for 3 different ones: Lake Champlain, Stowe Area Association, and Lamoille Region. And so it was very important to me, knowing that the network that you have as a chamber, to be able to have brochures and our magazines and things like that available for clients, people that are coming to your area to recreate in a different way in the wintertime, to know that these resources were here, whether they want to become a full-time rider or just go and rent a snowmobile.
So maybe if snowmobiling had a tagline, it might be something like the Vermont Southern Skiing.
What we have a T-shirt that we sell, and it says, if you haven't seen Vermont from the back of a snowmobile, you haven't seen Vermont. And it's true. I've lived here since I was 15 in 1978, and I have seen places that I would have never been able to see.
Absolutely.
And I get to see them now, and it's pretty incredible. And it's very hard for me to get lost in the state of Vermont on a road, and I don't get lost on our trails because we sign them so well, but I can look out at a beautiful vista and have to think, okay, wait a minute, which direction am I looking at right now? It's just a great way to see the state of Vermont. And to talk about our signing too, we are known as one of the best signed states in the state of Vermont, and are in the United States, especially in the Northeast. And it's mostly because we mandate how the signs need to look, where they should go, and we give the clubs all of these guides and materials to make sure that they're signing properly. Because we're signing road crossings, so we have to have stop aheads and stop signs and junction ahead. And each one of our junctions, we have thousands of junctions, thousands upon thousands, that each of them is signed, and it will tell you if you're at a junction, if you go that way, which junction you're headed towards and which direction it is. And the same with all the other ways.
And where you can get gas.
Where you get gas or food, or yes, exactly. And so that's really important. And safety is huge for us. We, like I mentioned earlier, we hire the law enforcement for the state of Vermont, and that includes Fish and Wildlife, game wardens, state police, local sheriffs, and some police departments. And so we have folks that are appointed by the governor that sit on a governor's council. We meet every month, and they're mostly made up of law enforcement and folks from the legislative side, and some state agencies. And we're very, very focused on safety. And last year, we started a new program called the Vermont Safety Ambassador Program. It's kind of a mixture of my chamber background and thinking about ambassadors and how the mountains all have ski ambassadors. It's that, but there's also a safety component. So these folks are trained, and their information is made available to the local law enforcement in case there is an accident or the law enforcement needs some sort of help. But for the most part, what they do is they have reflective vests, they have first aid kits, they have extra signs and tape to tape if there's a hazard, they come across a hazard on a trail, to mark that so other riders will know, to help people that have stopped at a junction and need directions, and just to in general talk to people about safety. If they see someone that's not riding appropriately, to be able to at least say, hey, that's, they're not law enforcement, but they could at least advise people to stay on the trails and things like that. And this is a very, very important program. We have about 40 safety ambassadors statewide, and they're very enthusiastic, and it's a great program, and we're just getting into our second year of it.
That's fabulous.
I didn't know about that. That's
it's
really
a great
cool.
program.
Yeah, we just started it last year.
Yep.
We feel pretty lucky about the way that the economy is affected by snowmobiling. When you were talking about the law enforcement and Fish and Game, we get their snowmobiles come to our shop every year. Probably 8 or 10 of them I can think of every year come in for service and stuff. So my mechanics stay busy because they're out there patrolling and keeping people safe. It all kind of goes together nice.
Yeah, it does. And so we pay for some of that. We give out grants for equipment and trailers for law enforcement, partial grants, and we also pay, obviously, their hourly rate to patrol. And then we also give out grants to clubs to help them buy the grooming equipment. We have 106 large groomers. They're the large ones like you see at ski areas.
Yes.
They cost anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 each, and we have 106 of them out statewide. And so that's a lot of groomers in our fleet. And they're all run by volunteers.
Yes.
Everything that is done to maintain the trails and to groom our trails is done by volunteers. We pay them for gas mileage. We give them so much per mile to groom. And some of them even have the little snowmobiles. They only have small trails, or they'll have some what we call secondary trails. And they'll have smaller that look like big snowmobiles, but they're groomers too. But the majority of our groomers are the very, very large ones.
106.
Yep.
And so Cindy, you talked about, and I think this is tax revenue, but you talked about $550,000. Is that tax revenue to the state?
Yeah, it's economic impact. So it's people staying in hotels. It's people buying snowmobiles. It's people eating out, buying gasoline for their vehicles, coming to Vermont. Any sort of equipment that you have to wear because I thought when I first started I could get away with wearing my ski gear. That lasted one ride because when you're riding, it could be 30 degrees out, but when you're going 30 miles an hour, all of a sudden it's 0. So you really have to have all that protective gear. So it's overall economic impact.
Fabulous.
And that was $550 million.
Yes.
Million, not
Million.
thousand.
No,
Million.
550 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fabulous. And so I think we're warping down in today's program, but I want to make sure to get all the good stuff. How does someone, and maybe it's with rentals, but how does someone start in snowmobiling?
Sure.
If somebody out there is listening and they have an interest in snowmobiling and they're not sure it's for them, where do they start?
I think they would start with Steve.
We are lucky to get a lot of families that come in shopping in our showroom where they've had a friend or a neighbor or a family member who is already involved in the sport. So a referral, they'll come in and they'll shop and pick out a new Arctic Cat maybe or a used machine. And we also do find people who didn't know they were ever going to be snowmobilers. Come and do a family vacation. They rent them. They go for a tour, and it's very addictive. I mean, as soon as somebody gets out in the woods and out on the trail and on a snowmobile, there's quite a few people each year who call us later and say, "How do I get one for myself?" So that's a good way to start.
Right.
I think family is the best. I think a lot of people get introduced by a friend or a family member.
Friend or family, but if somebody's not sure, I think the thing to do would be to go see somebody like Steve and go rent a sled for an afternoon and go check it out.
Yeah, it's really funny because a lot of people that are not from the motorized sports background, like I wasn't, at least in the wintertime, had sort of a preconceived notion on what snowmobilers were, and that's based on the media, because the pictures that you see are people flying up in the air and racing really fast, and the majority of folks that are out there are parents and grandparents and families, just going through the woods and having a good time. We have some areas in the state of Vermont that get some high traffic on the weekends where you will get on the weekend, you will get a little bit of faster paced riding, and we've got a pocket of it just south of here, and there's a good pocket of it up in what we call the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. But for the most part, it's really just families out riding, and it's such a social, and everybody's so kind to each other. I mean, it's really an awesome sport to be a part of.
Fabulous. And so where does snowmobiling in Vermont go from here, would you say? What's the opportunities ahead?
Well, Saturday we're going to get a foot of snow. So
yay!
Let's hope.
Sunday we're gonna do a lot of riding around the state. I don't know. Is it going to change a lot? I hope it doesn't change too much. It's pretty good the way it is.
I think the past 6 years that I've been here, we've we've grown to a certain point. We used to be a lot bigger as far as how many members we had, and it's actually gotten to a point now where we're very comfortable with the amount of members we have. We'd like a little bit more because we could use the revenue because we give it back to the clubs to help maintain. But other than that, I mean, I don't see a huge growth spurt happening with us unless the weather completely changes. But we have a base amount of members that come back every year, and so I wouldn't say that we're growing, but we're certainly not going away.
We're stable.
Yeah, we're stable.
We're pretty stable right now.
Fabulous.
And just like Mike talked about how he's got this core group of 12 folks in the club, that's very reminiscent of what happens statewide, and that's been happening forever. I was telling them a story about, I was reading some old magazine articles from back in the 70s that were written by our association, and there was one that some guy wrote about, and we'll call him Bob, and it was, somebody said, well, I need to go paint signs this weekend. Well, don't worry about it, Bob will do it. Well, I need to go work on the bridge. Don't worry, Bob always shows up. Well, nobody really knew who Bob was, but apparently he did all this work, but it wasn't true. And so that happens a lot where we get clubs that 80% of their riders or 90% of their riders or their members don't participate in work days when these clubs go out. But we couldn't do what we do without all of them. And what I say is, if you can't come and help on a weekend or you can't come when they have a work day, at least pay attention when you're out on the club system. If you see signs down or hazards in the trail, contact the club and not make it like an accusation. It's a, hey, just to let you know, something must have knocked this down, or carry a couple extra signs on you, to help put up. But I think for the most part, it's one big family.
You can't emphasize enough how it's volunteers. It's amazing that volunteers keep 5,000 miles of trails possible. It's unbelievable.
It's all because we love it.
Yeah, we have the largest volunteer base of any organization in the state of Vermont, and I am humbled every day. That's why I come to work every day. That's why I ride every weekend. It's because of what these guys do. They're amazing. And our landowners. We have 9,000 private landowners in the state of Vermont that allow us to use their property, and that is so valuable to us as well.
And have been for 40 years, a lot of those same landowners.
Yeah, over 50, yeah.
It's amazing.
2 generations.
Yep.
Well, folks, thank you for joining the program today. Any other closing remarks you want to make?
I want to thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you learned a little bit about snowmobiling. See Steve, maybe to get started down that path. Thank you for joining us.